What's next from Star? It's a pun. You get it? I said what's next like I meant what's coming or what's up from Star, but next is the brand Star is using on their new floral-free wax line. So when I say what's next from Star, it's actually an invitation for me to explain to you what all this stuff is. First, we need to have a disclaimer here. Caldwell Sport is not the importer of Star Wax. We're good friends with the family. It's a small family-run business. It's a great business focused on producing quality products, not on trying to develop a lot of slick marketing. And we really like working with these folks because they're our kind of people. We have made a business out of making really forthright recommendations about wax, skis, services, and really focusing on the strengths of the product lines that we carry and not so much on the weaknesses. We have very seldom suggested a whole line as just being universally great, and it's going to end up sounding like that's what I'm saying here. And it almost weakens our position. It weakens the pitch, if you will, if I'm just saying, oh, all of this stuff is awesome. But the fact is, it's a very, very strong line, and we need to make that disclaimer because otherwise it sounds disingenuous. It sounds like we're just trying to promote the company and not the products, but this is a really good product line, and that's why we're going to go over it. What you need to know about this line is that it grew out of many years worth of R&D and development in the fluorinated line of paraffins. We've made good business in the last 5 or 6 years selling a lot of Star's VF paraffins, and one of the strengths of those has been the ceramic additive that is branded Ceraflon in those products and has really helped to separate them from the pack. That same ceramic is in these products, and the fact is that what makes these products so good has been in play, tested, researched by Star for over a decade. Well, that's not quite true. The first few years, the ceramics that they were using weren't that awesome. It was really 5 or 6 years ago with the introduction of the Ceraflon additive that it took off and became really good in a super broad range. What does it even mean when we say ceramic additive? And doesn't everybody have access to ceramics? Here's the thing. We're not talking about ground up pottery shards here. Ceramics are a whole class of substances generally understood to be inorganic, non-metallic solids. The list is so large, it's essentially endless. And to say that you have a ceramic additive really doesn't tell anybody much of anything about what you're putting in the wax. For this reason, one company's ceramics are not equivalent to another company's ceramics. This is way more vague even than saying fluoro. With fluoros, at least the base chemistry is similar, and we're talking about different polymers, and we know how big a difference different fluoro compounds ended up making. When I mentioned to Davida that other companies were playing with ceramics, he didn't sound too worried. He said, great, let them play. In 5 years, they'll have pretty good wax. I guess it took him a while. A lot of the new crop of floral-free race products that's coming out tend to have kind of hit or miss characteristics. They're great some days and then really not that good the others. And some of the prototype crazy ideas that we've tested from Star have had that characteristic as well. They'll win a test and then they'll kind of disappear for 2 weeks and not be anywhere. What you see here is based on chemistry and additives that have produced really solid performing waxes for quite a number of years, and they've continued to be the most consistent performers and the highest level performers over time, and that is why this whole line tends to be a very reliable line. We've leaned on it as the basis for our testing because we know it very well and we trust every part of the line, and as it's turned out, that's turned into a real strength of this line as compared with other floral-free race lines. It's reliable. It always tests near the top of the pack, and it can weather changing snow conditions. 1 year to the next, it continues to perform. It's just a really good line of wax. The next line is organized quite simply. There are 4 temperature ranges: polar, cold, medium, and warm. And there are 3 product lines. There's a powder, which is a powdered paraffin. There's a liquid, which is the same paraffin in a like isopropyl alcohol fluid suspension. And there are these blocks which are designed to be applied by Fleece. We're going to go over each of these and sort of discuss how they're used and how the line is conceived as a whole. Okay, these next powders are simply paraffin in powder form. If you've been using the Star VF waxes in the past, you'll be really familiar with the way the stuff works. It's a microgranule powder, and it's powdered for several reasons. It's really economical. You don't use very much of it. You can use much less than a gram of powder per ski and get complete coverage and very little waste. It's also really easy to apply. It's easy to spread the wax on the ski, and it spreads really easily under the iron. It's just a especially slick way to work with waxes, especially on the cold end, like the polar and cold, where dripping the wax on tends to make really hard droplets. These are hard waxes, and the powder application is just really easy. Finally, it's also a great way to put the additive material into a really uniform distribution on the base. There is a lot of ceramic additive in these powdered waxes. The ceramic, in the quantities that are put into these waxes, doesn't tend to want to stay in suspension in the wax, and it's hard to get the wax to cool with a uniform distribution of additive in it. Therefore, the powdered rendition allows you to get a very uniform distribution of ceramic additive onto the base of the ski. So how does it work? Well, these waxes are quite similar to the traditional NF waxes from Star, which also have had the ceramic additive in them and have for quite a number of years. The next powders test consistently faster in all conditions. They test consistently faster than any additive-free paraffin that we've used in all conditions, and therefore we just find it very easy to depend on these as race-based paraffins. They do fine alone. You iron them, scrape them, brush them. You can ski on them just like that, but we also find that they support the top coats, the cold applications, to a higher level of performance. To be clear, we almost always find better performance from either the liquids or the Fleece applied blocks, but the best performance comes when we apply them over the appropriate powdered paraffin. Applying the powders is really quite simple. My idea from this video is that I should be talking and providing some voiceover, but at the same time I'm going to shoot some videos in the shop of me putting the wax on. So hopefully you've already seen me sprinkle the wax, and now I'm ironing maybe, or maybe I'm already scraping and brushing, or maybe I don't need to scrape and brush because you guys all know how to do that. Whatever the fact, it shouldn't take more than about a minute to put this wax on the ski. It goes on easily, and it is an iron-on paraffin that is easy to work with, and you can do this. So just don't worry about burning the ski or anything like that. Go ahead, sprinkle it on, iron it, scrape and brush, done. Okay, let's talk about the liquids. What you need to know about these liquids is that they have the same basic chemistry as the powders. The liquids are the same wax and ceramic additive in suspension in an isopropyl alcohol carrier. Isopropyl alcohol evaporates very quickly, which means that you can apply the wax and it will dry and be ready to ski in under 2 minutes. Really, like 60 seconds is usually all you need for the application of these. There are a lot of different liquid paraffins on the market being proposed by a lot of different companies, and they all use different fluid carriers. These are all solvents. They need something to dissolve the wax, put it into solution, and apply it to the base. It's just the nature of the way the wax works. Every company has tested different solvents, and the same is true of Star. We did this when they were producing the HF liquids, and we tested a bunch of different carriers, and we found that the isopropyl alcohol works best with the products that Star is making, and that continues to be the case with these next liquids. We like the isopropyl alcohol for its fast drying, and because it feels safe. We put it on our hands with hand cleaner all the time. It's not unfamiliar or scary or smelly or weird carrier or solvent. It's easy to work with, and it doesn't smell like you're going to set your house on fire. It'll make you a little high if you breathe too much of it, but that's familiar to everyone anyway. These next liquids are really formulated to be used as the final layer in racing, or the final layers in racing. They provide a thin film application, and what we find is that they're best in their performance and their durability when we finish with a rotofleece. Star makes this nice handle without a guard for running rotofleeces, and a couple of different length fleece hairs. This small one is the one we use for applying the blocks, and we'll get into that it can be used to finish the liquids as well. But this is a prototype of a long-haired fleece that I've really been liking for finishing the liquids. And we're going to have that in the catalog next year, and we'll be stocking them for sure. I've even got some now for people who want to try them out. We also have been testing different drill speeds. Oh, this is so awesome. I got this drill. This is a fine cordless drill, and it goes
3,850 RPMs.
That's some serious RPMs. It gives this little dude a little hairdo. It like frizzes him out every time. I kind of want someone to spin me at 3,850 RPMs. I bet I'd feel just as perky. Anyway, for finishing the liquids, the long-haired fleece is great. My feeling is that the short-haired fleece puts more mechanical work into the material. The long-haired fleece just buffs it and leaves the thin film kind of intact. And for adding layers, it preserves the layer-to-layer integrity, which means that if you're using different products in subsequent layers, you kind of keep the layering intact instead of just smearing it all together. Our testing has indicated that layering up these liquids 2 to 3 layers is better than just a single layer. So as we talk about a race preparation, we would be talking about 1 to 2 layers of the next base paraffin, scraped and brushed, with liquid applied, buffed 2 to 3 times. We see the skis speed up consistently with multiple layers. There is a diminishing benefit after 3 layers. I really don't see the point to doing many more than that. But those multiple layers do tend to give us better performance, and I believe better durability as well. We have put these waxes into marathon situations, 30 to 50 kilometers, and had good skis for the whole length. So that thin film is hanging in there and working well when it's applied correctly. Okay, the really new and different thing are the fleece applied blocks. These are products that Davide Moseli, the chemist at Star, developed in response to the success we are having using the fleece on the liquids. And he said, well, if the fleece is working well on liquids, we should try applying wax with the fleece. He had to do a lot of work with the base chemistry and the viscosity of the wax to produce wax that would work well with a fleece application. This stuff works by, I'll open up the cold one, it's seen plenty of use. This stuff works by holding it against the fleece while you spin it, and then holding the fleece against the ski. And it takes a little bit of a leap of faith, sort of. You can't really tell that anything's happening until you've worked with it a little bit. But once you have tested the output, you'll come to realize that it's a very effective application. It's best to think of it as a buffing compound. You don't want to pile up the wax on the ski and have a lot of smeary stuff going on. You really want a clean, shiny base, and it works really well to apply with a short fleece and then buff with a long-haired fleece, or with a 70 millimeter nylon brush that can also stack right on this roller that comes from Star. In general, these blocks have tested best in somewhat older snow, and the liquids have tested best in somewhat newer snow. As a race system and solution, once again, the powders are universal. The liquids seem to be a good new snow race finish when finished with the fleece, and the fleece applied blocks seem to be a good old snow race finish. We've also had success testing the liquids over the blocks and the blocks over the liquids. Some of this is a layering effect where we're just building up enough laminates on the base to achieve sort of optimal performance. But there's something else going on here as well. We've tested multiple applications or layers of the liquid versus a layer of liquid over a couple on block, and the combination often seems to be a little better. There's some art to be brought to this. It's a little like kick waxing when we start layering things up. Learning the materials, understanding the materials is an ongoing process. We're like 15 months into testing this stuff, and really we only had the blocks in the second half of last year in prototype form. So we're still picking up on this. Many of the teams we work with are also doing their own testing and finding very interesting results. So what's the story? Everything's moving really quickly. You keep hearing this in the industry. Is all this stuff going to be different in another year? Is progress going to happen so quickly that what's being sold this year is going to be out of date and useless next year? In the Star line, I don't believe that's the case. In fact, I've already seen next year's catalog, and it looks very familiar. These products aren't going to change. We have been testing prototypes of new products, and in fact, we've been involved with testing all along. I prepared this little platter here to show just a few of the products that have been part of the testing and development of this. We really started way back at the very start of last year testing different raw materials. Some of these are funky. Oh, I got one out. This one I wanted to show you up close. This is wild looking stuff. I don't know, can you see it? It's kind of sparkly and shiny. Crazy. This stuff tested really well once or twice in wet old snow, and then it tested not that well. And again, we had a lot of circumstances where some of these crazy new materials were very, very promising in individual tests, and then just would kind of disappear for 2 months and not show up at all as good waxes. And that's not very useful when we're trying to produce a whole line. Trying to chase down these magic bullets on the one day that they work is nearly impossible. And when you start doing it from multiple lines of wax, you kind of have your hands full, and you're never going to find a robust and serviceable solution that's safe and puts you in the race. That's really the strength of the Star line, is its dependability from one day to the next. Last year, so these little blocks, these are just a handful of the test products that we worked with for fleece application last year, testing different hardnesses, different viscosities, different additive contents, and this whole project produced the 4 waxes that are being offered this year. Clearly, our work with Star has been rewarding for us. Anytime a company sends us test product, listens to what we have to say, and responds with adjustments or makes wax that we ask for, it's really gratifying because it makes us feel like what we do is worth something in the broader world. Instead of just trying to hawk wax and sell something, we're helping to in a development process, and it's engaging and rewarding. That also means that we test more Star product than other products because we're always putting prototypes into our testing against other brands. And anytime anybody does that, they find more success with a given brand. You should take my recommendation with a grain of salt, because my favorable impression of Star is based on a lot of testing of multiple Star options against 1 or 2 from other brands at a time. And that's always going to favor the brand with more starters, if you will. You put more skis from one brand in a race, then you're going to get more winners from that brand over time. And yet, the end result is really robust, really predictable performance from the whole line. And given how consistently the base level products, the products that are in the catalog and being sold, have continued to come to the top of the testing and have been reliably good and not just occasionally excellent, I think that we can rely on some stability over the next couple of years. We hope to see incremental changes. Of course, we hope for the silver bullet. We want to find a wax that's just incredibly good, and yet I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see, big changes. There's going to be incremental marginal gains as we refine quantities and work toward better and better products. This is going to be true from all the brands, not just from Star. There's not a floral replacement coming up anytime soon, and so stability is an important thing. And I believe that this next line, as it exists now and as it will be offered next year, continues to provide a really good basis. If you can beat it, you're going to be doing really well, and of course that will happen. We do have plenty of other winners, but we're definitely relying on this next line as our testing basis, as our reference point, and we're looking for ways to improve on it. And thus far, it's ended up on race skis more often than not, which says a lot. What else do I have to say here? I should mention that next year, the NF line, as we know it, will be branded Next. And this is because it has the ceramic additive in it. And what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, this will be branded next year with some minor adjustments, and next year's NF will be additive free. It will be just the paraffin without the ceramic to satisfy some of the customers and leagues that want to see additive free waxes because they don't like fast keys.